Hello there. Today I want to talk about John Dalton, the man most famously known for developing the first modern atomic theory, the foundation of all modern chemistry and physics. There was no single person who invented the atom, because atoms were not created by humans. They have always existed. But the person who first proved, explained, and scientifically defined what an atom is, in a way that the world still uses today, was John Dalton. Now I will tell his story in one complete, continuous text without any headings, and I will cover his life, work, struggles, discoveries, and legacy in detail. Hello there. Today I want to talk to you about one of the most important scientific minds in history, John Dalton, the man who gave humanity its first real understanding of what atoms are. Before Dalton, the idea of atoms existed only as a philosophical guess. Some ancient Greek thinkers believed everything was made of tiny particles, but they had no scientific proof. Dalton changed that. He transformed a simple idea into a global scientific reality, laying the foundation for modern atomic science, chemistry, and even the technologies we use today. His work affects your everyday life even now, from medicine to electronics, energy, engineering, and the entire understanding of matter itself. Let's dive into his story. John Dalton was born on September 6, 1766, in the small village of Eaglesfield in England. His family was poor, humble, and hardworking. They were Quakers, a religious group known for simplicity and honesty. Dalton grew up in a quiet rural environment, surrounded by farmland, nature, and manual labor. His parents could not afford a high-level education, yet Dalton showed signs of extraordinary intelligence from a very young age. He loved numbers, patterns, weather, and anything that could be observed and measured. Even as a child, he kept notebooks, writing down rainfall, wind patterns, and temperature changes. He was curious about everything. Dalton began teaching at the age of just 12, yes, 12 years old, because he was already smarter than most adults around him. Later, he moved to Manchester, where he joined a scientific society and met other thinkers and researchers. While living a very modest life, Dalton continued studying mathematics, physics, and gases. His room was simple, his clothes plain, and he lived with almost no luxury. His only passion was science, and his only goal was to understand the truth about the world. Dalton was fascinated by gases, air, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and he started conducting experiments using balloons, glass tubes, and simple measuring tools. Over years of careful observations, he noticed something groundbreaking. Gases combine in simple whole number ratios. This was unusual. Why not fractions? Why always whole numbers? This mystery led him to the most important idea of his life. In 1803, Dalton proposed the first modern atomic theory. According to him, all matter in the universe is made of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. Each element, like oxygen, hydrogen, or carbon, has its own type of atom. Atoms of one element are identical to each other but different from atoms of any other element. Atoms combine in small whole number ratios to form compounds. And in chemical reactions, atoms are simply rearranged, never created or destroyed. This theory changed everything. Dalton didn't just claim atoms existed, he gave them weight, properties, and mathematical behavior. He turned them from a philosophical idea into a scientific fact. His theory became the foundation for all chemistry. Later scientists built on his work, discovering electrons, protons, neutrons, and even subatomic particles. But the basic structure of atomic science today is still Dalton's model at its core. Dalton's atomic theory also allowed scientists to understand why chemical reactions happen, why gases behave in certain ways, and how elements combine. It opened the door for the periodic table, quantum physics, nuclear energy, and every modern scientific achievement involving matter. Without Dalton, there would be no advanced chemistry, no modern physics, no electronics, and no understanding of molecular biology. Despite being a genius, Dalton lived a very simple life. He never married, had no children, and spent most of his days teaching and experimenting. His handwriting was messy, his lab tools were basic, and he often worked alone. He was very shy, quiet, and humble. He didn't research for fame or money, he researched because he genuinely loved science. An interesting detail about Dalton was that he suffered from color blindness, a condition where a person cannot properly distinguish certain colors, usually red and green. Dalton was one of the first humans ever to describe this condition scientifically. In fact, color blindness was originally called Daltonism in his honor. He even allowed scientists to examine his eyes after his death so they could learn more about the condition. This shows how deeply dedicated he was to knowledge. Even though Dalton was quiet, his scientific impact was loud. By the early 1800s, his atomic theory gained recognition worldwide. Universities, laboratories, and scientific societies all began using his ideas. Chemists found that his theory perfectly explained chemical reactions, gas behavior, and atomic interactions. His work brought order into the chaotic world of chemistry. Dalton's fame continued to grow, and he received many honors during his lifetime. Yet he remained modest. He preferred spending evenings writing notes, conducting weather observations, or doing small experiments. He was not interested in wealth. At heart, he was still the same curious boy who loved to observe the world. Dalton died in 1844 at the age of 77. More than 40,000 people attended his funeral, an enormous number for that time. He was buried with great respect, and his legacy continued to grow long after his death. Today, every student who learns chemistry is learning Dalton's ideas. Every scientist who studies matter builds upon Dalton's atomic theory. Every piece of technology that relies on atoms, which means almost everything, is rooted in Dalton's work. Let me add something personal. Dalton's story is a reminder that greatness does not require wealth, fancy equipment, or fame. It requires passion, patience, and endless curiosity. Dalton came from a poor family, received little formal education, and lived a simple life. Yet he changed the world more than almost any scientist in history. His work forms the core of modern science. He proved that even someone with humble beginnings can create a legacy that lasts centuries. So to summarize, Dalton introduced the first scientific definition of the atom. He established that atoms are the fundamental building blocks of matter, that each element has its own unique type of atom, and that chemical reactions are simply rearrangements of these atoms. His discoveries reshaped the entire scientific world. Without Dalton, we might never have understood matter, molecules, or the structure of the universe at the microscopic level. Thank you for reading this long and detailed text about John Dalton, the man who developed modern atomic theory and forever changed human understanding of the physical world. I hope you enjoyed this journey through his life and achievements. Goodbye and take care.